If you're a worship keys player with a MIDI-based rig, you're probably bringing at least some or maybe all of your gear from home to church for every rehearsal or service. And it's great to have this flexibility to be able to set stuff up at home, prepare, and then go to church, plug in, and play. But when your gear is traveling, when it's getting plugged in just an hour or minutes before you need to be playing, it can increase some points of failure in your setup. So in this video, I wanted to share a little bit about how I prepare and what I take to church with me every single time I play. And I say every single time because I found that if I take the exact same gear with me every time I play anywhere else, I have a lot less trouble figuring out last-minute bugs, and I just have more reliable performance in general. So let's take a couple minutes. I just want to share with you the stuff that I take with me in my bag every time I play keys at church. So obviously I take my laptop and my charger. I take USB cables with me because I never know for sure if the cables I need are going to be available wherever I'm playing. Now, I have one of the newer MacBook Pros with USB-C ports only, and I actually really like this. I don't use a USB hub. I just have different USB cables that are the exact length that I need to connect my keyboard. I always bring a backup USB cable for my keyboard. And then I have this shorter cable that I use to connect my Nano Control 2. And I have these cables from a company called Cable Matters that I get on Amazon. They're color-coded by length. And so this makes my setup process really short because I can make sure that I grab a cable that's just long enough to do what I need. And I love having cables that are just the right length because it reduces the risk that somebody's gonna trip on a cable. It makes it easier to make the keyboard rig look nice and appealing visually because there's not all this extra spaghetti. So I'll link this brand of cables in the description. I really love it. I found them very reliable and they're super affordable too. Really, my favorite feature is the fact that they're color-coded because when I'm reaching into my bag at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, I need things to be simple and easy for me to understand. I always bring my Nano Control 2 with me, regardless of the MIDI controller that's going to be available to me, because then I can pre-assign all of my MIDI in Mainstage when I'm at home, and then when I get to church, all I have to do is assign my keyboard, my sustain pedal, and everything else is on the Nano Control 2. So regardless of how nice or what keyboard's available at the church I'm playing at, this goes with me because it saves me tons of time and I can practice how I'm going to perform. So I love the Nano Control 2. That's always something that I take. I also always take a sustain pedal. Now, most of the time there's gonna be one at the church, but I found that out of all the possible points of failure of a keys rig, the sustain pedal is probably the most common. So I always like to just take a backup because without a sustain pedal, especially if you're playing piano parts, you're gonna be in a pretty tough spot. So I just unplug it from my rig at home, toss it in the bag. I haven't had to use it in a while, but there have been a couple of times over the last few years where this thing has come in clutch at the last second. I also always bring a backup audio interface. Now, depending on the way that your church is set up and the gear you have, you may or may not feel the need to do this, but I've got an extra one that's sitting on the shelf. So I like to just bring it so that I always have a little bit of backup if I need it. And it's also helpful because if I ever needed to give more outs to the front of house, if they wanted to split my pianos and pads, I could connect two audio interfaces at the same time to my computer and just get these extra outs. So I like to take an extra audio interface with me. And then I take my in-ears. Right now I'm using the KZ-AS10 in-ears. These are quad driver in-ears that sound really great. And they're super affordable, especially compared to some of the more name brand models. So I really, really love these. They're great for worship music. They've got a nice bass response, but they're not like overwhelmingly bassy. So I really, really love these. I've been super impressed by them. I've been using them for a couple of months now. So if you're in the market for in-ears and you don't want to drop hundreds of dollars on customs, these are a good way to go. I'll put a link in the description to these as well. And then lastly, I always take a laptop stand. The reason being that I'm just not comfortable putting my multiple $1,000 MacBook Pro on a music stand or resting it on the end of a keyboard where somebody just has to brush up against it to knock it over. So this is a stand designed specifically to hold a laptop. It's got a pin on the base right here that locks, and then it also has an adjustable angle. I don't know if you can see that here, where I'm able to adjust the tilt of the stand. And I know that it's gonna lock into place. And then it also comes with this little gel that's just a non-slip surface. So that goes on the stand, and then my MacBook sits right next to it. So I really recommend, if you're gonna use your laptop at church, there's gonna be people moving around, there's gonna be people walking past your rig when they do announcements, there's gonna be people jumping and dancing all over the place. Please don't use a music stand if you can avoid it. Set your laptop on the ground behind everybody before you put it on a music stand. Or, best case scenario, get something that's designed specifically to hold your laptop. So that's a little bit of what I take to church with me every single time I perform, and I try to unpack my gear when I get to church in the same way every time as well. I always take out my InEars first, and then I connect my keyboard, then I connect my Nano Control, then I connect my audio interface. And it might sound like I'm just overcomplicating things or thinking things through too much, but again, first thing in the morning or after a long week, I just need things to be simple. And when you're moving your gear around, you want to eliminate as many possible points of failure as possible. So come up with a system for how you want to methodically connect and disconnect your gear, and I think that you're going to get more reliable results. So again, if you want to check out any of this gear, I'll put links in the description so that you can see them for yourselves. And I'd love to hear from you, like what's in your pack list? What do you take with you every time you perform live? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe as well so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching.